We entered 2026 promising ourselves things would be different. But look at you, still in the same chair, still staring at the same screen, still selling the same hours for a currency that loses value while your life energy evaporates. We have been conditioned to treat our professional misery as a mere psychological burden, a cloud of stress that can be brushed away with a weekend of binge watching or a bottle of expensive wine. But this is a dangerous, systemic misunderstanding of the human organism. Your body is not a machine that can be forced into a cubicle without consequences. It is a biological truth teller, and when you force it to wake up every morning to perform tasks that your soul finds repulsive, you are not just working. You are engaging in a slow-motion biological war against your own nervous system. The human body is equipped with an ancient survival mechanism known as the HPA axis, hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. In the wild, this system was designed to save your life. When a predator appeared, your brain flooded your bloodstream with cortisol and adrenaline, sharpening your focus, dilating your pupils, and preparing your muscles for flight or fight. But here is the tragedy of the 21st century. Your brain cannot distinguish between a hungry predator and a toxic performance review. It cannot tell the difference between a life-threatening crisis and a passive-aggressive email from a manager you despise. When you sit in that office, breathing in the recycled, dead air, staring at a flickering screen for 10 hours a day, your HPA axis is screaming danger. It is pumping stress hormones into your veins as if you were constantly being hunted. But because you cannot physically fight your boss, and you cannot flee the building because of your mortgage, that stress remains trapped inside your tissues. It becomes chronic high cortisol exposure, and over the years, this does not just make you unhappy. It physically degrades the architecture of your brain. High levels of cortisol act like acid on the hippocampus, the area of the brain responsible for memory, learning, and emotional regulation. It literally shrinks the neural connections that allow you to think clearly. This is why, after 5 years at a soul-crushing job, you feel stupider. You are more forgetful. You find it harder to learn new skills. Your edge is disappearing because your brain is being dissolved by the very work you do to survive. Meanwhile, the amygdala, your fear center, becomes hyperreactive. You become a person who is constantly on edge, constantly scanning for threats, unable to relax even when you are at home with the people you love. But the sabotage goes deeper than the brain. When your body is in a state of constant survival, it makes a cold, biological calculation. It shuts down your long-term systems to prioritize short-term survival. This means your immune system is compromised. Why spend energy fighting off a minor virus when the brain thinks you are fighting for your life at the office? This is why you get sick the moment you finally take a vacation. Your body finally lets its guard down, and the years of accumulated exhaustion come crashing in. This is the origin of your chronic back pain, your digestive issues, your thinning hair, and your racing heart. Your body is not failing you. It is protesting. It is sending you a final, desperate warning, begging you to stop the masquerade before the damage becomes irreversible. Working a job you hate for the sake of money is a form of high-interest biological debt. You are borrowing the life energy from your future self, the self that should be healthy at 60 or 70, just to pay for the vanities and responsibilities of a miserable present. But the biological bank is a ruthless creditor. You cannot pay back this debt with cash. You pay it back with a heart attack in your 50s, or a total mental collapse just when you were supposed to start living. Every dollar you earn in misery is a dollar you will eventually hand over to a doctor. You are not making a living. You are financing your own destruction. The existentialist philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre described a psychological phenomenon called bad faith, mauvaise foi. It is the act of lying to oneself to escape the overwhelming, terrifying burden of human freedom. When you sit in a gray office and tell yourself, "I have no choice but to do this job," you are living in bad faith. You are pretending to be an object, a resource, a tool, instead of a conscious human being with the power to walk away. You are telling a lie to the universe, and the interest on that lie is the slow death of your soul. Every human being is born with a unique internal compass, a set of inclinations, curiosities, and innate potentials that define who they truly are. When you spend the vast majority of your waking hours doing work that contradicts that compass, you create what psychologists call an authenticity gap. On one side is the real you, the version of you that craves creativity, genuine human connection, and meaningful contribution. On the other side is the employee you, the mask you wear to survive the corporate hierarchy. The tragedy is that the employee you is a character you have to maintain with immense effort. You have to smile when you are angry. You have to use hollow corporate jargon to hide your emptiness. You have to care about quarterly projections that have absolutely no impact on the human condition. Over time, the real you is pushed into a small, dark corner of your mind. You begin to identify with the mask. You forget what it feels like to have an original thought. You forget what it feels like to be truly excited about a project. You have become a ghost in your own life. an actor who has forgotten they are in a play. This existential erosion is why so many successful people feel a profound sense of emptiness. They have climbed the ladder, they have the title, they have the respect of their peers, but they have no self-respect. Why? Because they know in the quiet hours of the night that they have sold their inner fire for a pile of paper. They are receiving applause for a role they never wanted to play. This leads to a state of total internal poverty. You can have $1 million in the bank and still be spiritually bankrupt if your work requires you to be someone you are not. Think about the concept of presence. When you are in a job you hate, you are never truly there. When you are at work, you are dreaming of being home. When you are at home, you are worrying about being at work. You are perpetually waiting for the clock to hit 5, waiting for Friday, waiting for the 2 weeks of vacation per year. You are wishing for your life to pass by as fast as possible. This is the ultimate insanity. We have one short flicker of consciousness between 2 eternities of darkness, and we are praying for the time to move faster. We are literally wishing for our own deaths because our 9-5 is so unbearable. By accepting a life of misery for a paycheck, you are also teaching everyone around you, especially your children, that the world is a cruel, inescapable trap. You are modeling a life of quiet desperation. You are telling the next generation that adulthood means the death of dreams. That is a toxic legacy that no amount of inheritance or private school tuition can fix. True providing is not just about the size of the house you buy. It is about the quality of the spirit you bring into that house. If you come home as a hollowed-out shell, irritable and exhausted, you are not providing for your family. You are haunting them. You are selling your presence to a corporation and giving your scraps to the people you claim to love. It is time to ask, who is actually winning in this transaction? Because it certainly isn't you. Let us dismantle the most seductive lie ever told by the modern world, the illusion of the paycheck. We are taught from birth that a higher salary equals greater freedom. We are told that the number in your bank account is a direct measurement of your liberty. But in reality, for most people, the opposite is true. In the world of high-stakes corporate misery, a larger salary is often nothing more than a heavier set of golden handcuffs. To understand the tragedy of the modern worker, we must look past gross income and examine what I call true human profit. If you earn $10,000 a month, but you must sacrifice 300 hours of your life to get it, including the hours spent working, the hours spent commuting, and the hours spent in a state of mental paralysis recovering from the stress, then your actual hourly wage is a joke. But the real economic trap is the misery tax. When you spend your days doing work that violates your soul, you develop a desperate, subconscious need to buy back your happiness. You don't buy that luxury SUV because you appreciate the engineering. You buy it because you need a soundproof sanctuary to scream in on your way to a job you hate. You don't buy those designer clothes because you love fashion. You buy them as a suit of armor, hoping that if you look successful enough on the outside, people won't see the hollowed-out shell of the person on the inside. This is the cycle of compensatory consumption. You work harder to earn more money, so you can buy more expensive, numbing agents to forget how much you hate working harder. You upgrade your apartment, you buy the newest gadgets, you dine at the finest restaurants, all in a futile attempt to fill a spiritual void that was created by the very job that pays for those luxuries. This is the hedonic treadmill in its most vicious form. Your lifestyle expands to meet your income, and suddenly you can't quit. You are trapped by your own expenses. You have become a slave to your own standard of living. You are no longer working to build a future. You are working to maintain a present that makes you want to die. Think about the hidden costs of exhaustion. You pay for expensive convenience because you are too depleted to cook. You pay for high-priced escape vacations where you spend half the time checking emails and the other half dreading the flight back. You are trading your gold, your irreplaceable time and physical health, for temporary material comforts that lose their shine the moment you take them out of the box. If you were to calculate your income after subtracting the cost of the alcohol you drink to numb the stress, the therapy you need to stay sane, and the useless status symbols you buy to justify your misery, you would realize that you are actually working for pennies. You are not making a living. You are financing a slow-motion bankruptcy of the spirit. True wealth is not the ability to spend money. It is the ability to own your morning. If you don't own your time, you are poor, regardless of how many zeros are in your bank account. Why do millions of brilliant, capable, and creative human beings stay in cubicles that suffocate them? The answer is not found in their bank accounts. It is found in the social architecture of fear. We have been subjected to a lifelong conditioning process designed to turn us into high-functioning cogs. From the moment you entered the school system, you weren't being taught how to think. You were being taught how to comply. You were trained to sit still for 8 hours, to perform repetitive tasks on command, and to seek validation through external grades, the direct ancestors of the modern corporate KPI. The industrial world does not want visionaries. It wants human resources. It needs a predictable, docile workforce that is just smart enough to run the machines but not brave enough to question the purpose of the machine. Fear is the cheapest fuel in the economic engine. Society keeps you afraid by dangling the specter of poverty, social isolation, and resume gaps over your head like a guillotine. We are taught that stability is the ultimate virtue, but in the 21st century, stability is a ghost. The company that hired you today will liquidate your entire department tomorrow if a line on a spreadsheet goes red in a boardroom 3,000 miles away. The safety you feel is a hallucination. The most insidious part of this architecture is horizontal policing. Look at how your friends and family react when you mention leaving your stable job to pursue a path with meaning. They don't offer encouragement. They offer their own projected insecurities. What about your 400 and 1,000? What about your health insurance? Don't you think you're being selfish? They aren't actually worried about your survival. They are protecting their own fragile worldview. If you leave the cage and succeed, it proves that the cage was optional all along. Your freedom is an insult to their cowardice. If you can be free, it means they could have been free too. And that is a realization too painful for most people to bear. So, they will try to pull you back down into the crab bucket. We have been brainwashed to believe that misery is a rite of passage. We wear our burnout like a badge of honor. We compete in the suffering Olympics, bragging about how little we slept, how many emails we sent at 2 a.m., and how many years it's been since we took a real vacation. We have turned productivity into a religion, but we have forgotten what we are actually producing. We have become the most anxious, medicated, and depressed generation in history because we have disconnected work from humanity. You were not born to be a unit of production. You were not born to spend the prime years of your life when your eyes are sharp and your heart is bold, building a dream for a billionaire who doesn't know your name. The fear you feel when you think about quitting is not your own. It is the voice of a system that is terrified of losing its power over you. The moment you realize that stability is a lie and security is a cage, you become dangerous to the status quo. The social architecture of fear is built on the assumption that you will never realize your own value. It's time to prove that assumption wrong. To understand the profound emptiness you feel at your desk, we must look at the ghost that haunts the modern office, the Industrial Revolution. We are the descendants of a massive psychological experiment that began 2 centuries ago. Before the rise of the factory, work was tied to the human scale. A craftsman saw a project from beginning to end. A shoemaker saw the leather, shaped the sole, and watched the neighbor walk away in the finished product. There was a closure to labor. There was a visible, tangible connection between effort and outcome. This is what psychologists call task identity, and it is a fundamental requirement for human satisfaction. But the Industrial Revolution demanded efficiency over humanity. It introduced the concept of division of labor. It broke complex, meaningful tasks into tiny, repetitive, meaningless fragments. It turned the craftsman into a hand, and eventually into a resource. The goal was to make the human being as interchangeable and predictable as a gear in a steam engine. If a gear breaks, you replace it. If a worker collapses or complains, you replace them. This interchangeability is the foundation of the modern corporate world. You are not John or Sarah to the system, you are headcount. You are an expense line to be minimized. This historical shift did something devastating to the human psyche. It severed the link between work and meaning. We moved from making to processing. In the modern office, you spend your life moving digital paper from one folder to another. You attend meetings to discuss meetings. You create reports that no one reads to satisfy requirements that no one remembers. This is the bureaucratic void. Because you never see the final result of your labor, because you are 10,000 miles and 50 layers of management away from the actual impact of your work, your brain begins to perceive your labor as useless. The industrial ghost also brought the dictatorship of the clock. We are the only species on Earth that ignores its internal biological rhythms in favor of a mechanical device. We wake up when an alarm screams, not when our bodies are rested. We eat when the clock says it's noon, not when we are hungry. We sit still for 8 hours because that is the shift, regardless of whether we have finished our work in 2 hours or whether we are too exhausted to think. This rigid synchronization was necessary for assembly lines, but it is a prison for the human mind. It creates a state of perpetual jet lag of the soul. You are living a life that is out of sync with your nature, and the friction of that misalignment is what we call burnout. Burnout isn't just working too much. It's working too long on things that don't matter while ignoring the rhythms that do. There is a profound biological difference between a brain that is creating and a brain that is complying. When you are engaged in work that aligns with your natural curiosities, what we call the flow state, your brain operates with a level of efficiency that is almost miraculous. In flow, the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for self-criticism and doubt, actually shuts down temporarily. This is called transient hypofrontality. It allows your subconscious to take over, leading to rapid problem-solving, distorted time perception, and a massive release of neurochemicals, dopamine, serotonin, and endorphins. In this state, Work is not draining, it is regenerative. You leave a flow state feeling more alive than when you started. Now, contrast this with the brain of a person doing a job they hate. When you are forced to perform tasks that feel meaningless or repulsive, your brain enters a state of executive friction. Because your natural impulse is to stop, your prefrontal cortex has to work at 200% capacity just to force you to stay focused. It has to manually override your instincts every single minute. This is incredibly expensive in terms of biological energy. You are burning through your glucose and your willpower at an unsustainable rate. This is why you feel physically exhausted after a day of just sitting in meetings. You haven't moved your body, but your brain has been in a violent internal tug-of-war for 8 hours. This chronic friction leads to what neurologists call cognitive narrowing. When the brain is under the stress of compliance, it loses its ability to think laterally. It enters survival mode, focusing only on the immediate task and the immediate threat, the deadline, the boss's temper. You lose your ability to be creative. You lose your ability to see the big picture. Over years, this isn't just a temporary state, it becomes your permanent default setting. You literally lose the neural pathways required for innovation. You are dumbing yourself down to fit the size of your cubicle. Furthermore, the lack of natural reward in a hated job destroys your dopamine baseline. Dopamine is not just about pleasure. It's about motivation and pursuit. When your work provides no sense of pursuit or accomplishment, your dopamine receptors become desensitized. You lose your zest for life. This is why people in soul-crushing jobs often find it impossible to start a side business or a hobby after work. It's not that they don't have the time, it's that their brain's reward circuitry is broken. They are in a state of anhedonia, the inability to feel joy in anything. They come home and collapse into passive consumption, Netflix, social media, junk food. Because their brain is desperately seeking an easy, external dopamine hit to replace the one it should have gotten from meaningful work. You are not lazy, you are neurochemically depleted. And the only way to fix the chemistry is to stop the friction. Most people never leave the jobs they hate because they suffer from binary delusion. They believe their only two options are to remain a miserable corporate slave forever, or to quit impulsively tomorrow and starve under a bridge. This is a false choice designed by your fear to keep you paralyzed. The exit from a soul-crushing career is not a reckless leap into the dark. It is a calculated, strategic, and often quiet migration. It is an act of internal secession. You must begin to treat your current job not as your identity, but as your venture capitalist. The moment you decide to leave, the power dynamic shifts. You no longer care about the office politics. You no longer care about the quarterly reviews or the approval of your superiors. You perform the minimum required to keep the checks coming in, and you divert every single unit of remaining life energy toward your exit ramp. This is the barbell strategy. On one end, you have the boring security of your current paycheck. On the other end, you have the high upside of your new venture, skill, or investment. You eliminate the middle, the career path that requires you to give your soul for a 3% raise. To build this bridge, you must engage in aggressive skill acquisition. Most people in corporate roles have shallow skills. They know how to navigate a specific company's software or politics, but they possess nothing that the open market values at a high premium. You must spend your evenings and weekends becoming indispensable in a niche that aligns with your soul. Whether it is coding, writing, high-ticket sales, or a specialized trade, you need a hard skill that acts as your parachute. You don't need a passion yet, you need leverage. Leverage is the only thing that breaks the walls of the cage. The most difficult part of the exit architecture is the psychological decoupling. For years, you have been told that you are your job title. You have introduced yourself at parties as the marketing manager or the senior analyst. To leave, you must kill that ego. You must be willing to be nobody for a while so that you can become yourself forever. This is where most people fail. They are so attached to the status of their prison cell that they refuse to walk through the open door. You must realize that the prestige of your corporate title is just a bribe the system gives you in exchange for your youth. Burn the title, keep the mission, build the bridge in silence, and when the foundation is strong enough to hold your weight, walk. The greatest weapon your employer has against you is your monthly expenses. If you need $5,000 a month to survive, you are a hostage. If you only need $2,000, you are a king. We have been tricked into a lifestyle of proportional waste. As our income rises, our needs miraculously rise to meet it. We buy bigger houses that require more cleaning, more maintenance, and higher taxes. We buy more complex cars that require more expensive insurance. We have been sold the lie that more equals better, but in the context of freedom, more equals weight. Every dollar you spend on a status symbol is a minute of your future life that you have sold to a corporation. If you buy a $50,000 car instead of a $10,000 one, you haven't just bought a vehicle. You have bought an extra 3 to 5 years of mandatory labor in a job you hate. This is the price of freedom calculation that no one taught you in school. When you look at a purchase, stop looking at the price tag in dollars. Start looking at the price tag in life hours. Is that new watch worth 200 hours of sitting in meetings with people you don't respect? Is that designer bag worth 3 months of your finite time on Earth? Usually, the answer is a resounding no. Radical minimalism is not about deprivation. It is about strategic abundance. By slashing your burn rate, you increase your runway. If you have $50,000 in savings and you spend $5,000 a month, you have 10 months of freedom. If you cut your spending to $2,500, you have 20 months. You have literally doubled your life. This is how you buy the courage to quit. You don't need $1 million to be free. You need a gap between what you earn and what you spend that is large enough to build a freedom fund. The system hates a minimalist. A minimalist cannot be bribed with a bonus. A minimalist cannot be threatened with a layoff. A minimalist is immune to the status games that keep the gears of the corporate machine turning. When you stop trying to keep up with the Joneses, who are likely broke and miserable anyway, you reclaim the power to say no. The word no is the most powerful word in the human language, but it is a luxury reserved for those who have mastered their own desires. Freedom is not the ability to buy anything you want. It is the ability to walk away from anything that no longer serves your soul. Own less so you can be more. We live in a world obsessed with growth, accumulation, and compound interest. We are taught to worship the dollar because we believe it is the ultimate measure of security. But we have fallen victim to a catastrophic category error. We are treating a renewable resource, money, as if it were more valuable than a non-renewable resource, time. You can always make another dollar. You can lose everything today, your house, your savings, your investments, and through grit and strategy, you can earn it all back. History is littered with stories of people who went bankrupt at 50 and became millionaires at 60. Money is a flowing river. It comes and goes. But time is an evaporating mist. Every second you spend sitting in a meeting that serves no purpose, every hour you spend performing labor that makes you feel hollow, is a second and an hour you will never see again. It is gone, deleted from the universe. If I offered you $10 million today, but told you that you wouldn't wake up tomorrow, would you take it? Of course not. This simple thought experiment proves that your tomorrow is worth more than $10 million. Yet, we spend our todays as if they were cheap, selling them to the highest bidder for a fraction of their true value. We are the ultimate bad investors. We trade a priceless asset for a common commodity. The corporate world survives on your inability to grasp your own finitude. It wants you to think in terms of quarters, fiscal years, and career decades. It wants you to believe that you have an infinite supply of next years. But the reality is that your prime years, the years when your energy is highest, your health is best, and your capacity for risk is at its peak, are a very narrow window. You are selling the gold of your 30s and 40s to buy the copper of your 70s. You are hoping that one day, when you are old and tired, you will finally have the freedom to do the things you should have been doing when you were young and bold. This is the delayed life myth. We treat our lives like a movie that we can pause while we do the boring stuff to pay the bills. But there is no pause button. The cameras are always rolling. Every day you spend in a job you hate is not a preparation for your life. It is your life. If you spend 40 hours a week in misery for 40 years, you haven't just had a tough career. You have had a miserable life. The math is undeniable. You are not sacrificing for your family. You are sacrificing your family's opportunity to have a happy, present version of you. Stop treating your time like it's a bargain bin item. It is the only thing you truly own, and it is the only thing you can never buy back. I want you to engage in a final, brutal act of imagination. Project yourself forward in time. You are 90 years old. You are lying in a quiet room and the air feels thin. Your body is a fragile shell, and the career you worked so hard for is nothing but a collection of dusty files in a basement or a deleted folder on a server. No one remembers your excellent performance review of 2026. No one cares about the project lead title you fought so hard for. In that moment, the only thing that will matter is the answer to one question. Did I live my life, or did I live the life others expected of me? If you stay in that job you hate, if you continue to sell your soul for a sense of security that doesn't actually exist, your 90-year-old self is going to look back at you right now with a grief that is deeper than any ocean. They are going to scream through the corridors of time, begging you to wake up. They are going to plead with you to realize that the risks you were so afraid of, the risk of being broke, the risk of being judged, the risk of failing, were nothing compared to the certainty of regret. Regret is the only thing that cannot be cured. You can fix a bad investment. You can find a new house. But you cannot fix the realization that you spent your one and only shot at existence playing it safe in a cage you despised. The world is a vast, chaotic, beautiful, and terrifying place. It is full of opportunities for those who are brave enough to be unstable for a while. The walls of your office are not there to protect you. They are there to hide the horizon from you. The safety of your paycheck is a ghost. The prestige of your title is a bribe. The fear you feel is a compass pointing toward the exit. It is time to stop being a human resource and start being a human being. It is time to reclaim your morning, your energy, and your identity. The door to the cage is not locked. It never was. You are staying inside because you have become comfortable with the bars. This is your wake-up call. This is the signal you've been waiting for. Don't wait for a better time. Don't wait for a sign from the universe. This is the sign. You are listening to these words because your soul is trying to save your life. Money can be printed, assets can be built, but your life is a non-renewable event. The clock is ticking. The sun is setting. Stop working for the money. Start working for the man you were born to become. Your 90-year-old self is watching. Don't let them down. The cage is open. Walk out.